Hi, everyone. Welcome to Shelley Live on Wednesday. So we're here today, Wednesday. We will not be doing tomorrow night, Thursday. And I thank everyone for being with us today. So our guest today is Darrell Steen again. So Darrell, welcome back to Shelley Live.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thank you. And so the topic of conversation today is predictions, good news, and so we want to hear from you guys. So any comments or questions, feedback, drop it in the chat. I'm actually watching. Hi, Barb. Thanks for joining us. I'm doing so much better than I was and still working through some things. So thank you for asking, and I'm glad you're here. So let's see. So Darrell.
Good news.
Good news. Woohoo! Woohoo!
Starting January of 2021.
Sorry, guys, you're going to have to wait.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. But what's happening, what I'm seeing is this. I've talked to people all over the world. I have clients all over the place, Australia and England and Saudi Arabia and some in South America somewhere, I don't know. Anyway, I've talked to a lot of people, and 90% of the people I'm talking to, maybe even 95% that I'm talking to are having these really good influences starting in January. Now, remember, there are several different layers of bias here, so it's not like a control group or anything like that.
Yeah. But so I'm gonna stop you just for 1 second, because for those who are listening in and they don't know who you are, can you share a little bit about yourself with the audience today?
Yeah, I started my studies of astrology when I was 16 years old. I had my chart read, and the lady that read my chart, she said some things she could not have known unless she was following me around. And the idea was like, okay, there's something there. Skeptic, oh my God, I couldn't believe I was doing this. But anyway, I did. And the idea was, if astrology works at any level, that means so much religiously, scientifically. I mean, it opened up so many cans of worms that I love to get into. Religion and science, and oh yeah, it's great.
We like worms over here. In fact, I'm my grandpa's buddy, so we would go fishing all the time. And worms, ooh yeah. So so what are the worms you have for us?
Okay, well, what they are, when I got to the astrology thing, it's like I started studying, and I did not go to college because there was nothing there. There was I was doing astrology, and the way I wanted to do this, I wanted to study this full time. I wanted to be a full-time astrologer.
Yeah.
This is the only way to do it. I took a series of tests from organizations, the American Federation of Astrologers being one, before computers, so I know what I'm doing, so to speak. But then, after time, just as chart after chart, I knew it would take decades to get to the point where I could read a chart, just like someone playing the piano. You know, you meet someone to sit down and play the piano. There's a lot of work and practice that came in before that. So it's that kind of a thing. And besides that, the idea, would you want to go to a part-time doctor or part-time, no, like full-time. I do this 24 hours a day.
Yeah, I want to go to the doctor who's only done surgery once or twice,
Yeah, if it's the only one, but and I believe in second opinions. Everyone's biased. I had one woman wanted me to take her off her mailing list because she thought I was too biased because I said we're going to open up the country too soon. Well, hell yes, I'm biased. Everybody is. That's part of the deal. That's why we have to triangulate. But anyway, the idea was astrology formed this way of looking at life that was outside of my opinions. Mm-hmm. In fact, a lot of people beginning astrology don't follow through with it because it won't support their pet ideas, what they think the world should be. Mm-hmm. It's an exercise in coming to know yourself psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually.
So that's kind of like wanting to hear what you want to hear to make sure it matches up with you versus exploring and saying, really, what's the truth in this, and how can this actually be utilized?
Yeah, and I've done this full time now for how old am I? Almost 40 years now. Full time, from chart to chart to chart. Yeah. So an idea of making money at this. Oh no, I'd have to write a book or something. I can't still long enough to write a book. So that's not happening. But for me, it's the one-on-one consultations, talking to people and seeing what's really going on. So in all the readings I do, I have to have follow-up. I want to know what, that's all part of the original cost of the reading. There's no additional cost for all that. I want to know what's happening. That's where I learn this stuff. We start getting into those details. That gets to be great fun. I don't mean trivial, but I mean it's very interesting. So that's part of the reading. Several different times we talk during the year.
And one of the things that I like is that you cover the lay of the land, so to speak, too. So it's not just what's in the sky. It's also how, and my interpretation is how the stars affect the land, and the best places for you to be living or the best place for you to be working, and how all that lines up. And one of the things that you and I were talking about earlier, and I know I mentioned this in our last show about Christopher Columbus, and that the skies were actually used as a mapping system. So those traveling by boat would actually, because that was one of the major modes of transportation. So they would know as they're traveling that they're going in the right place, and they know how to get home. And then it's exploded to, I'll let you talk because.
Well, the groups of stars that are the constellations, I mean, you look at them, they don't look like a goat or a set of scales or twins. They don't look like anything unless you're on some drugs. But that's not the case. 2,000 years ago, what they did is they took this group of stars, and this is the sign of Libra, and this group of stars, it's the sign of Scorpio, and kind of made it fit. But the stars are not a part of Western tropical astrology, which is what we're doing here. The signs are based on the seasons, the sun and Earth's relation. The fixed stars have nothing to do with it. Maybe a little bit, and like at the solstices, that's why this last eclipse at the solstice was so important. The sun and the Earth, and at the solstice points when there's an eclipse, and the moon are all in line with the galactic center. So we base the chart off of the seasons. That's why I call tropical zodiac. When the first day of spring, at approximately March 21st, I say the sun is in Aries. It's actually still in the constellation of Pisces, but the constellations are not the signs. There's a whole lot about this technically that people don't know, and one of my specialties is the astronomy behind this. I know I get my interpretations of the planets from what they're made of, for example, where they are in the solar system, not so much from mythology.
Yeah, I thank you for saying that, because I think a lot of people think of astrology as kind of that woo-woo thing versus that it's really based on science and reality, and that it is a system that is used as a tool to navigate through life. Just like, guys, so if you were to look at the map of the world in today's world, right? And then the map of the world back in the 1800s, it looks so completely different. And the same thing, it's like everything is ever changing.
Yes, it's like it becomes clearer. New information does not negate the old, but it makes the old clearer. Science always does that. They say science is always wrong. Well, it is, as we do new information and we add to it. Used to be putting leeches on you was the medical treatment. Well, that was wrong, but we're adding, it's clearer. And like when a new planet is discovered, for example, it becomes clearer. Our situation in humanity becomes clearer. Like when Uranus was discovered, Neptune, Pluto, even Chiron, when they were discovered, there were shifts of consciousness for all of mankind. And in this last 10 to 15 years, we've discovered 7 more planets, which means that before COVID, we were also at several different evolutionary tipping points in humanity's existence. So we were headed for big changes anyway. This is just Mother Nature underscoring the idea that, you guys need to live within the bounds of nature, or guess what will happen. In fact, there's a new planet, Maki Maki, that talks specifically about if we don't treat the Earth as a terrarium, it can become barren. There's one called Haumea, that's the Hawaiian goddess of fertility. It has rings. It's shaped like an egg, fertility. It has several moons and several other objects. It's, again, where they are, what they look like. That's what makes them. And so like like when Pluto was discovered. Pluto's the big deal now. It was discovered in 1930. The stock market crash, that's the year we learned, actually a year before that, we learned that the universe, all the galaxies are moving away from each other. Freud and Jung were writing their letters back and forth for psychology, and Pluto rules psychology, the fact that all things come to an end, even the universe. Plutonium was isolated in 1930. So here we are, Pluto's heavy again.
Yeah.
And where are we? Right back at the stock market crash, right back at, so, you know, I mean, there's these cycles repeat themselves. And if we can look at it and learn from the past, we can do really well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to say again, for those of you who are watching, hi, Morales. Thank you for joining us. Drop us a message, drop us a note. You have a question, let us know. We'll be happy to answer that live on the show for you. Yeah. And so we were talking about 2020 to 2024.
Yes, good news. That January thing is really significant. So I am, like I said, I'm very encouraged by that. And like I said, it's something new. It's a Uranus transit, so it's always something new and freedom inspiring, et cetera, et cetera. Another really good thing, like I said, the new moon, the decisions of the Supreme Court, I mean, the eclipse that just happened, the new moon, that's encouraging. And more people are waking up. I think it's very encouraging. So January is when that starts. Also good news, at 2024, it starts, and at 2025, it's strong. All these planets we talk about being in conjunction and alignment, and we're pointing to them saying, things terrible, the sky's falling. They are going to all be in harmonious alignment. Oh, yeah. Yes. So I have good news, really good news in the long run. Good. And I want to think of this video as like part 3 of the other 2. The other 2, we describe what astrology is and is not. We've outlined the problems, and the predictions are all difficult because we are acting badly. But I think we are hitting a turnaround point. But before then, Mars goes retrograde. Mars just went into Aries a few days ago, and it retrogrades in Aries, which is real good for me. But what happens is it's going to get in the mix. It's going to square Pluto and square Saturn. And Mars is the god of war, violence. If it's physical activity, actually. And physical activity that's not channeled some way productive can turn into anger and violence. Look up anywhere you want to, Mars square Pluto. Whether it's a natal or a transit or whatever, that's what's coming. September, the end of September, first week of October. And we all know it's going to get violent. It already has. I mean, that's an easy prediction. But things turn around in January. And we'd like to tell people until then, the airplane, those people that are not following the rules are trying to open that airplane door to see if we can really fly. You stay in your seat with your seatbelt fastened. And now that the oxygen mask has come down,
here's my parachute.
put yours on and leave it there until the plane comes to a full stop.
Yeah.
It's good news. It's good news.
Even if it's on the water, might be a good idea.
Even if, but see, the analogy, the plane's not going to crash. That's the deal. So it's the idea of stay in your seat, and you will be fine. But anyway, this is really good, and none of this stuff that's going to happen coming up is going to be unexpected at all. So brace yourself this next 4 or 5 months, but January. And after January, like I said, these things happen, these conjunctions break up. And that really actually, we can say, begins the beginning of the formation of these outer planets in 24 and particularly 25 being in harmonious alignment. So I was worried. I was really worried because the United States is at its Pluto return. It's an existential crisis. Okay. And I think we are turning the right direction with this in a lot of different ways. So I am very encouraged. As you can tell from the other 2 videos, I was not.
Yeah, that was clear. But it's interesting because Darrell, for those of you out there, Darrell and I were talking a little bit earlier today, and I'm like, what the heck has been going on these past week or so? Because as amazing as my weeks and days have been, I've had the tumultuous also. And it's like, okay, I've got both at the same time. What is going on? And I know my clients that have been coming in to see me, they're like, oh my God, Shelley, I'm dealing with the same thing. And so it's like, okay, let's do some energy work. Let's see what's going on and see what we need to actually bring healing to. And so when you and I were talking about the psychological aspect of what's going on the planet, I think it's also that time for us to go within and do our, what I call our soul work. So when we've been through shocks and traumas, whether it's through the generational flow or something in this, I'll say this lifetime, those, to just step over those wounds and expect something new to show up isn't going to happen. So it's kind of like, then it's, you're putting like icing on a mud pie. But if you begin to do your soul's work, your soul's purpose, and I think what's really great about this time is so many of you have been looking at what is my life purpose and what am I here for, and actually starting to do the work to have something new show up for your heart, for yourself, and in your life. And until you do that, it's still going to be more of the same. Would you agree or disagree? Or
that's what Pluto does. In the chart, we get our conditioning from our family, our tribe, and our locality, and then Pluto comes along, and it's like deprogramming. It's like, what you may have been raised with was great, but it's a bigger, wider world out there, and anything that you have in your consciousness that is very difficult, problematic, if you're not aware of it, you will keep stumbling over it again and again. Not because you have to fix it, but you have to realize it's there so you can step around it. We get to a certain age and we think we're fully formed. I have my idea, my feelings are my feelings.
I so wish that was true, Darrell. I wish it was true. I wish it was
and
true.
These new planets are different layers of that deeper ideology.
Yeah.
So Pluto is about that. So that is the time when you do therapy. That's the time whenever you do look at those things and have start getting the awareness of, I'm being driven by psychological forces that I was unaware of. And we all are. We all are right now. I am right now. You are. Everybody is. It's being aware of that. And if you can't be aware of what's going on inside yourself, you're not going to be able to get a grasp on the outside world. It's just that simple. It's the basic 101 psychology. And with this Pluto thing that's going on right now, there are going to be a lot of people who are going to be willing to step into or forced into what I'm calling the psycho-spiritual world. That is the world of psychology and spirituality. And, what the hell are we doing on this planet anyway? I mean, we think we know. It's to be safe. It's to have a car. It's to have a house. It's to have a retirement. That's crap. I mean, those things are really good in the short term, but that's not why we're here. Or anybody that thinks we're here to make life simple and easy, they end up neurotic. It's just,
and I think that's been part of the, I'll call it the rude awakening at this point, is that you really get present to that a lot of those things are not available because you can't be using those things or out where you would normally want to be out. So it's really forcing us, I'm going to say, to go within, but literally to go within. So we're going to be right back and we'll talk about the journey. Well, welcome back. So I love those. I've been having fun creating, if you guys haven't figured that out. So we are mostly fully open and have brought on some new staff and another therapist to assist with the colon hydrotherapy because the demand has gotten so large. And we are now working on a global level with clients virtually, and have classes coming up and a whole lot more. So if you'd like to have more information, please reach out at this number below at 630-328-3928. And Darrell, what do you have going on your end of the world in terms of what you're doing?
Well, what I've been doing with my readings now is, and I always go a year and a half in the future, and again, but now I'm going farther into 2022 with every reading to get beyond this time period to see what's coming after this.
Yeah.
So the readings now go for almost a full 2 years, sometimes longer, depending on, but it's important to see past this. But in the meantime, take care of yourself. It's day at a time. We look ahead, but we take care of today.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you miss opportunities in your day-by-day world for pining for the future or the past or what was, or we're missing the shiny objects that are right at our feet. We're missing that beautiful flower over there, metaphorically speaking, those being some good things.
So Darrell, so I just wanted to give a shout out. Camille, thanks for joining us. And Marty Barrett says, hi, Darrell.
Hey, I know that person. I know.
Oh, you do? Okay, awesome. So thank you, Marty, for joining us. Yeah. So we I'm glad you're actually talking about this right now, because we were talking about the journey and early in our conversation, we're like, so many people have the blinders on and they just want to get there. And it's like, what do we got to do to just get there? And they press and they press and they press so hard. But I think for so many, we press to wanting to get from point A to point Z. We forget that along the way, there's many paths we'll still get to Z, but if we're like this trying to get to Z, we're not going to have the opportunity to find a gift along the way if the path veers off in a different direction. And so
serendipity.
You can
the detours sometimes are some of the best journeys you can have. Visiting that big ball of string or the biggest corn husk or whatever you want to call it, the deepest well. Sometimes those little things, a lot of times those little things are what we remember as being the good things.
Yeah.
It's like some people are trying to play a game of darts and we're trying to hit that red circle in the middle. You're not going to hit it most of the time. So don't even try, but you want to try. But there's also, we don't have to play darts either. There are other games.
Hey, I'd say go ride a horse or go on a prairie path or in the woods somewhere.
Exactly. And that's what we're here for, is to help each other along the journey of psychological, spiritual growth.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for. What that means beyond that, I don't know. We all have our modalities and our things, but if we take care of that now, that's what this Pluto time period is about, for us to do this self-analysis, psychoanalysis. Mm-hmm. And it is analogous to being deprogrammed. It is difficult. When you teach a kid something young enough that something's true, it's hardwired in their brains, and they grow up and they can't think outside the fact that the earth may not be 6,000 years old.
There's a journal that I created that's called Inside of Heart and Soul. And it's revealing the hidden myths and truths and stories about yourselves. So it has us really explore what we were told as a child, or what we were told by our teachers, or what we were told maybe by somebody else, or maybe even stories we created about ourselves or situations that we decided, okay, that's the truth about that. But then realizing, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't serve me right now because that was their belief. That doesn't mean it has to be your belief. And it really gets you to that place of relooking at, why did I believe that in the first place? Because right now it really makes no sense.
Because we are evolving and growing every day. We are creatures made by the earth. The earth goes through tectonic shifts and evolutionary tipping points. So do we. In everybody's life, there's going to be some kind of crisis, a turning point, a death, a divorce, disease, whatever. Mm-hmm. But on the other side of that opens the room for birth, for new growth, for new things that you could not see in a normal frame of mind. Yeah. That's what it's for, is to get us to deprogram from. And a lot of stuff we worked out when we were kids also is really good. It's not all bad. Mm-hmm. But, we have difficulty in, divorce as a child. That sticks with you. And if you don't, my brother died when I was 4, and the family fell apart and it was a big deal. I always joke I have a 4-year-old running around inside me. I do. That's not a joke. That's real. Wherever you have those traumas, part of you is stuck there.
Yeah. So true.
So and it's not a matter of getting over it. This is the deal. It's not like, oh, I gotta fix that. No, it scars you. You have a scar, but you learn to live through it. You learn to live around it. I've learned to know when that 4-year-old is talking and when he's not. Mm-hmm. Most of the
time. So let me think. Who's talking today?
There's others. We won't go into that right now. That's a whole other subject for a whole other thing. But we all have that. We're all stuck at ages and time periods, and we have to learn that that's what we are. We are made of those experiences, and they can be bad and difficult because, like I said, we're a young species, so we don't treat each other very well a lot of times. A lot of times we do. That's great. So, be kind. People want to write a book so they have a legacy, or they want their name on a building. Just being kind to the checker at Walmart sometimes can make a world of difference. So we all are here helping each other. We all are here understanding that we are psychological creatures. We have an intellect, but it's just a tool in the toolbox. We are made of psychology and spirituality and emotions.
Yeah. Well, I would say the past couple of weeks, my emotions have been whoo.
Speaking of that, this eclipse that just happened, whatever individual things are going on in your chart, the squares and trines and all that stuff, these new and full moons trigger what's going on. They're like the spark for the fire. And if you're in the middle of a whole bunch of difficult influences, then the eclipse now, between the eclipse on the solstice and the eclipse coming up here in a few days, there is this time period of like, we got to push it forward. So all these things come to a head, and they demand you got to take action on this and take action on this. Mm-hmm. When it's all been building for a long time, it's just when the especially the eclipses, boom, now you got to do something. And usually it's all at once. So it feels like it's becoming overwhelming. Yeah. But it's time to make decisions. It's time. And there's not, it's I got to make the right decision. Which one's the right? There are many decisions that will work. Yeah. Different is not necessarily bad.
I think the hardest part for a lot of people is being able to just take a moment to separate it all out, because when it's coming at you, as it occurs that it's coming at you so much at one time, then it's like, okay, how do I separate it all out so I can actually focus to work on that? And then what's the priority? Because it seems like all of it is the priority at that time.
That's true. And there's, again, with these Pluto transits the world is having, it's a big deal. There's a lot going on. So you take it a day at a time. You don't worry about stuff too far in the future. You do what you can do today, and then see what's tomorrow. Anytime someone's having a Pluto transit like this, and like I said, the whole world, the country is having a Pluto transit, that's how you live, because that's reality.
Yeah.
So and trying to fix it, a lot of times these things that are coming to a head with these eclipses have been in the making for years, if not decades. So there's no quick fix, but you take it a day at a time. You have a mountain of paperwork, a mountain of garbage. Oh my God, that's so much. What do? You pick up the first piece of trash, and then you pick up another one, and you pick up another one. We want to be mindful of the long-term future, but not live for it right now.
Well, and so as you're talking about one piece at a time and not the whole 10 feet of it. It's like if you were to try to attack all of it at one time, then it really throws things out of balance and
the avalanches on you. Nope, one at a time. You control. Eventually, you'll make a dent, and that'll feel good. Then you'll make a bigger dent, and that'll feel good. But if you try to dive right into it, it's going to fall on you and crush you.
Well, and not only that, there's other aspects to your life that still need attention. So to try to tackle all of it at one time is just, I'll say, that emoji where you see the brain popping out? It's kind of like that. So it's like, how do you still work through that? And even not how do you, but just working through it and working on everything else in the middle of, so that there's like Libra's about balance, right? I don't know that much about astrology. I tried to study it. It is not my language. It is not my gift. So thank you, Darrell, for being on this.
It's different for different people. Everybody has their own language.
Yeah.
Not just this, but even the language we speak. Words mean different things. I can say the word love, and 10 different people are going to hear, I love this potato chip. I love my partner. What? They don't even mean anything. So, you have to be careful. It takes analysis. That's why God gave us these big brains, and not to use them. That's the ultimate sin.
Yeah. Well, and since you brought that up, it's like, I'm just going to ask out there, how many of you have given yourself over to somebody else to make decisions for you, or have said, okay, I want somebody else to manage this because I just don't want to deal with it, versus just saying, okay, how do I put myself in an unknown space to be open to receiving the guidance, or being open to the support of, instead of just saying, okay, I don't know, so I'm not doing it, or keeping my head in the sand, or like, and I think we all have aspects of that in our life.
Yes, we do. We all don't want to do the work. We all want to go watch cartoons. We all can put our head in the sand. Oh my God, yes. We all can misinterpret facts. Yes.
So did you say that Pluto like kicks our butt and gets our head out of the sand, so to speak?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But there are some people I've had that have had Pluto transits and not much has happened. I mean, I can see like some Pluto transit where someone's having this real horrible time, and rarely, almost never, but once in a while it happens. I will say this last year, because I always go back in the past. When I do a reading for somebody, a new reading in particular, I'll go back in the past to the last major aspect, especially the last major Pluto aspect, because people tend to remember those quite clearly.
Yeah.
But of course, people who are having a bad Pluto transit and they're not having a bad time, they're not going to call me. So again, I know that what I'm looked at is skewed. It's like the psychologist who sees nothing but people who are on the verge. So you think everybody is. Not necessarily true. Yeah. So I'm aware of the biases in that regard, and I'm aware that I do that in my readings. I say, well, this is maybe my bias talking, or you need a second opinion. Second opinions? Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
I am one guy. I have my biases, and I have it, and you have yours. But when you triangulate, which is what people are trying to do with astrology. A lot of times, astrology does really well in times of social unrest and political problems, because the authority figures who are supposed to know the answers have failed, and people are desperate. Let's try the wacky astrologer. Let's see. And lo and behold, or they turn to you with what you do and say, let's try this. I'm willing to give it a whirl. And lo and behold, there's something real here.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were talking a little bit about, I do want to acknowledge Marty for a minute. We were talking about, so there's so many people with a lot of different faiths. And when the clients that come into my office, there are some that believe in astrology and then some that don't. And then there's the religious piece of it that sometimes get in the way. And we were talking about like the scriptures and how astrology is actually acknowledged in the scripture, not as a bad thing, but as a way of learning and expanding, and I'm going to even say, even in dreams, to interpret dreams and things like that. So Marty says, I thoroughly enjoyed learning about my astrological reading from Darrell, and he is the real deal. And I love what you say here, Marty, is that I like to gather information and then make my own decisions, which I think is like, so it's like in that research and the searching of is, there's a lot of truth you can find there. Eloise Harris says Psalms 91. It says God sent, it just kind of disappeared, but how he has his angels guarding over us and that type of thing. So,
I could quote Bible and verse. I taught a 4-week astrology and Christianity class in 4 different mainstream churches in Wichita, Kansas, right out of the Bible. I know it. I can quote line and verse. And what the Christians say about it, that it's being bad, the Bible says it's bad. No, it does not. It warns against using astrology as a religion. Duh. Yeah. And it doesn't, the whole thing of like, if astrology leads you to other gods or whatever, then it could be a problem. Of course. Yeah. But it's no different than predicting the weather or predicting the stock market. We're taking information, putting it in a big, looking at it and seeing the cold fronts coming down. The war in Kansas, it was easier to predict the weather because it was pretty straightforward. Cold front comes down, warm front goes. What's going to happen? It's going to rain. That's not magic. It's that's what I'm doing here. And these cycles, there are 30-day cycles, 28-day cycles, biorhythms for anybody that remembers that from long ago. But there are cycles upon cycles upon cycles. And, everybody knows the 7-year cycle, for example. It's even got a name, the 7-year itch in relationships.
Yeah, I think everybody's probably heard about that at one time or another.
Oh, yeah, that's astrology. The full moon, that's astrology. Planting your tomatoes at the right time, that is astrology.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thomas Halley was giving Isaac Newton a hard time for believing in astrology. And Isaac Newton turned to him and said, "Sir, I have studied the subject. You have not." And you'll find people that don't believe it have never studied it. And there's all kinds of evidence, statistical, empirical, of course, because that's all we've got in anything really, that actually proves. There was a French statistician who was not an astrologer, got the charts of thousands of actors, politicians. He was going to disprove it. And guess what he did? Yeah. It's standard reading now. It's standard, like you got to study this. And so it's real. I could go on and on, but it's real. But study it, learn it. Don't just, I don't believe it's true because I'm smart and I know things and I don't believe it. Wait, what?
And if you don't know where to go to study it, call Darrell, or there's so much information on. I have to say YouTube is one of my favorite places to go for information, and there's a plethora of information that's out there. So it's like, when you read it, you watch it, it's, and then it's kind of like praying about it, see what resonates with you or what quickens your spirit. Like, okay, this is right. This feels right. But then it's like, what are the books and what are the other areas of things to, which goes along with what Marty's saying. It's like gathering your information, getting your education in the areas, and then making your decision or choice on what's right for you or what's not right for you.
Be careful about confirmation bias. It's very easy to look at the news programs that support our ideas and not look at the ones that don't. So you have to be aware that we can do that. I like this, therefore it must be good. I don't like this, therefore it must be. No, that's why the objectivity is important.
And like or not like really has not a thing to do with it.
Exactly.
So it doesn't matter if you like it or not.
See, that's what I mentioned about some astrology. Some people start studying astrology and they're like, "Ew, I don't like this," because guess what? And that's okay. But some people, they're hardwired. Good books about astrology. Anything by Stephen Arroyo. Ruth Eichler, Eichler, has written a book called The 12 Songs of the Soul. That is really good for just what the signs are about, because everybody has all 12 signs in them. You have Aries, you have Taurus, you have Gemini. Yes, you even have Scorpio. Everybody does. And it's a combination of those things what the planets are, because we're all basically made of the same thing. Yeah. We're all basically doing the same thing on this planet, whether we're black, white, gay or straight, or a Gemini or a Capricorn or whatever. We are really all here doing the same thing. Getting over our own arrogance, learning that there are other people that are important just as much as us, and learning to help and give. That's it. We all have joys, we all have pains, we all suffer loss, death, disease, different forms.
Yeah.
But we're all
so we're coming to the close of our program.
Already? What did you do?
I know. It's like time just flies by when you're with me. So I guess we're going to have to do this again, okay? So, before we go, any last word for our listeners today?
Just take it a day at a time. And the stuff that's going to happen this next 4 or 5 months until January, don't get too freaked out. It's going to be bad, but just remember, there are some really good, big things coming. So it's a storm. The storm hasn't hit yet. It's a storm going over, and from my days in Kansas, when the storm goes over, you go down in the cellar. Here in North Carolina, the hurricane goes over, you stay inside, and it will be okay, especially if we all pull together. And I think after this, enough people really are going to be on this side of reality that it's going to make a big difference. So,
if you need help in the process, because I know for so many of you, this has been such an excruciating, tough time. So just reach out. You know, we're taking appointments virtually. We are open where you can actually come in. Call the center at 630-328-3928. And then you can also reach out to Darrell, and his website is, oh, I put it down at the bottom. So you can reach out to Darrell down at the bottom. And then we'll have it posted in the chat below for those of you that, like, because I know it's kind of scrolling by a little bit fast. And then anything else you want to say before we close out?
Nope, just keep in there. There are good times ahead. So it won't be like it was. Don't pine for the past.
Mm-hmm.
We now have a new future. We now have a new way of dealing with things. And this January thing, there's also some planets in Aquarius that talk about social justice. So there's just so much that could be so good in the future. So
a lot to be excited about.
There really is.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I thank you all for being with us today. And Darrell, thank you for being on the program again. And I'm sure we'll be hearing more from him soon. And I want you guys to remember Friday night is Meditation by Design at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're working on healing the energy field, getting a sense of it. And it's just been a blessing for me to actually be able to offer that to you guys. And it's 7 p.m. Central Standard Time on Shelley Live. And then Sundays are Coffee and Tea with You and Me, which is with my daughter, Nicole. And so we have a special something for Sunday. And other than that, we look forward to seeing you here at Alder Healing Center real soon. Have a really great day.